Welcome back, everyone. We're going to start now Daat Elokim. Please, if you haven't seen the first introductory class that I gave, have a look at that. Explain to us. I explain exactly what we'll be learning over here. So again, my name is Rabbi Yosef Chaim Imran, and we're going to be learning a sefer called Daat Elokim, which is a kitzur of the system of the Arizal. So let's start. It starts on page Yud Gimel. And there is a musag, there's an idea called the Tzimtzum Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Now, we have to understand one very important rule is that all the Kabbalists explain to us as soon as you start the lima of the Kabbalah, there's a few rules that you have to understand. The first rule we have to understand is a rule called Ein Ligashem. We don't materialize things, notions that we're learning here in the Kabbalah. It's not like Gemara. Gemara, you want to try to visualize shor shenagach shor, a horse, boar, which is hits another boar. You have to visualize that and try to recreate that system in your mind to understand. Over here, we're dealing with spirituality. In spirituality, there is a contradiction between spirituality and materialism. It's a contradiction, one to the other. And it's one of the greatest miracles that Hashem ever did is create a body, for example, a body which embodies the spiritual and the material altogether. But otherwise, without Hashem's allowing that to happen, you cannot do that for yourself. That's why the Chazal, or the rabbis of tell us, the great Kabbalists, lo ligashem, not to create imageries in your mind. So when we speak about all these different patsufim, for example, we'll explain what that means, and these svirot, all these paradigms, and even when we give a mashal of lights, when we give an example of light doesn't mean the light that we sing over here, but rather light is a spiritual light. Okay, so if we want to understand Kabbalah properly, we have to make sure we have to take a step back and remove all types of prejudices that we have on words that we're going to be using. Even though the Chaim Vital tells us clearly that we're allowed to use words to give us a frame of reference in order to get us closer to these notions of Kabbalah, but that does not allow us to hold on to these notions. Does not make any sense. We'll reiterate this as we're going along, okay? But that's the first rule, lo ligashem. When we talk about imagery, we will be talking about imagery, but not imagine that it actually exists, but just give you a point of reference, a starter in order to get you an idea of what we're speaking about. That's number one. Number two is over here is that the second rule is that when we talk about Kabbalah, and this is something very ironic, but when we talk about Kabbalah, which is the most spiritual part of Judaism, we never speak about Hashem. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if we're ever going to talk about Hashem, this should be the place when we talk about our very holy Kabbalistic books. And I'm referring to all books. I'm talking about the Sefer Yetzirah, Hechalot, Bahir, Zohar, all the greatest and the oldest Sifrei Kabbalah that we have never ever mention of Hashem. Let me explain myself. What is mentioned is names which are attributed to Hashem. More exact would be to explain that the names that are given to us, that we are exposed to from the Torah, and there are many. There's Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. There's Agnus. There's Kel, Shakai, Elokim. There are multiple names to Hashem. But these are our revelations of Hashem. Hashem has given us a glimpse of what He wants to show us. But say the Kabbalists, and this is brought in the Ramchal, the Leshem Shubach Lama, Beis Lechem Yehuda, Shem and Sasan, all the Mefarshim explain that the atzmius of Hashem we never speak about. Let machshava tfisa kla. Says the Zohar, we don't have, our minds are not hardwired in order to conceptualize Hashem at all. And anybody that thinks they can is making a huge mistake. So therefore, we're not going to spend our time talking about Hashem. But what we will be, what the Arizal does and the Zohar and all the Kabbalistics, Sifrei Kodesh, do explain is the revelations that come from Hashem. That's a huge distinction, and you must understand this clearly in order to make sense of this limud. If not, you're going to make tons of mistakes, and it's going to be very, very difficult. Again, I reiterate that what we'll speak about lights, we'll speak about patzufim, we'll speak about sfirot. These are all emanations from the Atzmius, but they are not Hashem. Okay? That's clear. Number two, all the shemot that we speak about, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Adnos, Elokim, Shakai, Kel, all of those and more, again, are revelations of different midas, character traits, kiviyachol, and forces, powers, energies that are revealed to us from Hashem. Not that they are Hashem, but this is what He's revealing to us. So He's revealing, for example, Yud Kei Vav Kei is known to be a midas of Rachamim. So we know that Hashem wants to reveal to us Rachamim. Is He Rachamim? We don't know. We don't ask questions on Hashem, but rather we work with what we're given. So we know Rachamim is a positive characteristic that He wants us to learn us. So the Gemara says, Hu Rachum, Ata Rachum. So you have to be, if He is merciful, you have to be merciful. Hu Chanun, Ata Chanun. You have to be also merciful, and so on and so forth. Elokim is a midas of din. Whether he possesses din or not, we don't know. But this is the power that he utilizes and wants to show to us. Okay, so therefore we have these powers as well created in our reality, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I hope that those two rules are very clear. Saying that, let's move on now. So the first thing that in Daat Elokim, as we're reading over here, the Daat Elokim, we'll be reading page Yud Gimel. And he starts off by talking about the first notion in Kabbalah, which is called the Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And he says as follows: the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, kodem she'etzil et ha'sfirot, haya or pashut. So before all things were created, at the beginning, again, when we speak about the spiritual world, there is no time. So how can you talk about the beginning? So the questions will leave off. That's more of a deeper level. Right now, we're just simplifying, trying to get the overall system under our belts before we start asking and answering all these different, very difficult questions. Okay, so what we know from the beginning, there was an Or Pasha, and the Kabbalists explain that it's called the Or Chesed. Imagine it as a blanket of white clouds. That's all there was. Imagine infinite white clouds, just white. There was nothing else but that. And all Pasha. Mimali kol makomot. It's filled everything because it's infinite. V'lo haya sham makom panoi v'reka me'or klal. There was nothing else but it. Ubishka'ala be'rotzono le'hatzi latet makom ele nitzalim. And when Hashem decided that He wanted to create a reality, our reality, הנבראים, נוצרים ונעשים, צמצום עצמו בנקודה inside שבו. What He did, He decided to vacate some of that light in order for us to create a reality which is our reality. עשה שם מקום חלל פנוי מאורות. He cleared out all that light. להעמיד את עולמות, to create the worlds. What worlds? We're talking about the spiritual worlds, obviously, because the material worlds is coming way after in the story. Right now, we're just talking about the 4 or maybe the 5 spiritual worlds, which is Asiya, Yetzira, Bria, Atzilut, and Adam Kadmon. Okay, those are the 5 spiritual worlds which he's referring to. We'll see more about that later on. V'tzimtzum hu asa, הצמצום הוא עשה שיראה ממנו ברוך הוא האור וזיו. מה שקודם לכם אינו ניתן להיות נראה מושג כלל. Because imagine if you walk into a room and the lights of the room are so powerful that let's say each light bulb has 10,000 volts of light. So when you come in the room, it blurs your vision. You cannot see anything in the room. You can't see the chairs. You can't see the tables. Nothing is visible whatsoever. So what you must do in order to make the room functionable, you must dim the lights. That's the purpose of the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum was a purpose to reveal what was already created. That's important, because we're going to see that everything was actually already created, but it was nullified by this immensely strong light called the Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And by the way, the Kabbalah say clearly that Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu is not Hashem. As many people make a mistake, even though they call it Baruch Hu, blessed be He, but it's a creation of Hashem. Ein Sham the Leshem, Shebo Achlama B'Sefer Bi'urim. וזהו אור שניתן לראות קודם שנכנסו בו הספירות והעולמות בכל ענייניהם, ונקרא רשימו, כלומר רושם מן האור הקודם הסתלק. So, again, the light was very powerful. He dims the light in a particular area, not all the lights, only a particular area. It's actually very circular, 360 degrees. It looked like a ball that vacated that light. So it was a vacuum. But in that vacuum was left what's called the rishimo. The rishimo are the building blocks for what was going to be developed later on. והרשימו הוא המקום לכל הנמצא. לפי שהוא נותן להם מציאות, מה שלא היה נותן בלתי תכלית. So you needed those pillars of power, which was already there in what's called the Mokum Panui. המוקם הזה רצה מעציר ברוך הוא שיהיה עגול בצורה כדור, like I said, 360 degrees, לכן גזה שיצטמצם האור מכל סביבות הנקודות האמצעית אל הצדדים שווה. He again retracted the light from a central position till it became a circular vacuum, כביכול. פעולה זו נקרא צמצום אין סוף ברוך הוא. And that's the first musag, the first idea that we find in Kabbalah called the tzimtzum. Now this has a lot of applications that we're not going to go into this right now in these short classes that we're giving on Kabbalah. But for that, that's a good starting point. This is the first lesson in the Kabbalah of the Arizal.